Hello student, I am going to continue from the last video which we are going to discuss about the next topics of the sampling techniques. So I start with this one, quota sampling. The population is first segmented into mutually exclusive subgroup, just as in stratified sampling. As like this stratified sampling, as like the strata or groups of data or groups of items, here also the population is first segmented into mutually exclusive subgroups, then judgment used to select subjects or units from each segment based on a specified proportion. So based on a specified ratio or proportion, they try to select. The judgment is used to select subjects or units from the each segments of mutually exclusive subgroups. For example, an interviewer may be told to sample 200 females and 300 males between the age of 45 to 60. So here the group is, or the proportion is, you can see that with a specified proportion is that age range 45 to 60. That is a group, that is a stratified group, like stratified group, mutually exclusive means no overlapping, overlapping group. So it is the second step which makes the technique one of non-probability sampling. So here you can see it become like a non-probability sampling. In quota sampling, the selection of the sample is non-random. So selection of the sample is non-random. For example, interviewers might be tempted to interview those who looks most helpful. The problem is that these samples may be biased because not everyone gets a chance of selection. That is why this is the problem of actually the non-probability sampling. In non-probability sampling, we always might be biased because this type of scenario where suppose the interviewer want to take the interview who have the most useful, most helpful. The problem is that these samples may be biased because not everyone gets a chance of selection, and this random element is its greatest weakness, and quota versus probability has been a matter of controversy for many years. That is why quota versus probability has been a matter of controversy for many years. Next, convenience sampling, sometimes known as grab or opportunity sampling, or accidental or haphazard sampling, a type of non-probability sampling which involves the sample being drawn from that part of the population which is close to hand, that is really available and convenient. So we can understand in what type of scenario we can use this type of sampling. The researcher using such sample cannot scientifically make generalization about the total population from this sample because it would not be representative enough. For example, if the interviewer was to conduct a survey at a shopping center early in the morning on a given day, the people that he or she could interview would be limited to those given there at that given time, obviously, which would not represent the views of the other members of society in such an area. Obviously, the members present in the time of hour or in the early morning might be very less, or might be very different, or which might not be given a very good idea about the whole population. If the survey was to be members of society in such area, if the surveys was to be conducted at different times of the day and several times per week, so in that type of scenario it might not be good enough. But this is a one convenience sampling because we are trying to choose those sample only which are close to hand or easy to choose or readily available to choose as per our convenience. This type of sampling is most useful for pilot testing. So in case of you want to do a pilot testing for a project, for a software, for a research development, then you can go for this type of sampling. In social science research, snowball sampling is a similar technique where existing study subjects are used to recruit more subjects into the sample. So in social science research, snowball sampling is a similar technique. You can understand, or you can find this topic in literature also, in the book also, in the internet also, which is similar like convenience sampling, where existing study subjects are used to recruit more subjects into the sample. Here you can see one type, use results that are easy to get. Next, that is judgmental sampling or purposive sampling. The researchers choose the sample based on who they think would be appropriate for the study. This is used primarily when there is a limited number of people that have expertise in the area being researched. So researchers chooses the sample based on who they think would be appropriate for the study. So it's like judgmental, having some study on the samples they try to select. Next is panel sampling. That is about method of first selecting a group of participants through a random sampling method and then asking that group for the same information again several times over a period of time. Therefore, each participant is given same survey or interview at 2 or more time points. Each period of data collection called a wave. This sampling methodology is often chosen for large scale or nationwide studies in order to cause changes in the population with regard to any number of variables from chronic illness to job stress to weekly food expenditures. If you want to do some such like projects or such like research type of things, such large endeavor, you need to go for this type of sampling methodology where actually you are going to interview the randomly selected samples at first, and you go for the interview, or you go for the seeking the information again and again several times over a period of time from those selected randomly selected samples, samples, or you can say randomly selected items or participants. And panel sampling can also be used to inform researchers about within person health changes due to age or help explain changes in continuous dependent variables such as spousal interaction. So this type of scenario, or this type of learning, or this type of research, in this type of research we can go for the panel sampling technique. There have been several proposed methods of analyzing panel sample data, including growth curves. So after discussing all these type of sampling technique, so what sampling method you recommend? So for that case, you need to go for determining proportion of undernourished 5-year-old in a village. Suppose you need to determine proportion of undernourished 5-year-olds in a village. So you need to investigate nutritional status of per school children, or you can say preschool children, selecting maternity records for the study of a previous abortion or duration of postnatal stay. In estimation of immunization coverage in a province, data on 7 children age 12 to 23 months in 30 clusters are used to determine proportion of fully immunized children in the province. Give reasons why cluster sampling is used in this survey. So you can understand, if you read this slide, suppose you need to determine the proportion of undernourished 5-year-olds in a village, or you need to investigate nutritional status of preschool children, or you need to select maternity records for the study of previous abortion or duration of postnatal stay. So in this type of thing, or like in estimation of immunization coverage in a province, data on 7 children age 12 to 23 months in 30 clusters are used to determine proportion of fully immunized children in the province. So why in the last one we can go for cluster sampling? Because we are doing that grouping and we are choosing the children, 7 children from that group like cluster. So why we are going to do this type of thing? Try to understand this and give some reasons. That is your homework. So probability proportional to size sampling. Why? In some case, the sample designer has access to an auxiliary variable or size measures believed to be correlated to the variable of interest for each element in the population. This data can be used to improve accuracy in sample design. So you can use the auxiliary variable as the basis for stratification. Another option is probability proportional to size sampling, in which the selection probability for each element is said to be proportional to its size measures up to a maximum of 1. In a simple PPS design, these selection probabilities can then be based as the basis of Poisson sampling. However, this has the drawbacks of variable sample size, and different proportion of the population may still be over or underrepresented due to the chance of variation in selection. To address this problem, PPS may be combined with a systematic approach. So here you can see one example. Suppose we have six schools with population of 150, 180, 200, 220, 260 and 490 students respectively. Total 1,500 students, and we want to use student population as the basis for a PPS sample of size 3. To do this, we could allocate the first school numbers 1 to 150 and second school 151 to 330, the third school 331 to 530, and so on. Last school will be 1011 to 1500. We then generate a random start between 1 and 500 equal to 1500 by 3 and count through the school's population by multiples of 500. If our random start was 137, we would select the schools which have been allocated numbers 137 first, then go for 637, then go for 1137. That is first, fourth and sixth school. The PPS approach can improve accuracy for a given sample size by concentrating sample on large elements that have the greatest impact on population estimates. PPS sampling is commonly used for survey of business where element size varies greatly and auxiliary information is often available. For instance, a survey attempting to measure the number of guest nights spent in the hotels might use each hotel's numbers of rooms as an auxiliary variable. In some cases, an older measurement of the variable of interest can be used as an auxiliary variable when attempting to produce more current estimates. Another one is that event sampling. So event sampling methodology is a new form of sampling method that allows researchers to study ongoing experiences and events that vary across and within days in its naturally occurring environment. Because of the frequent sampling of events inherent in ESM or event sampling methodology, it enables researchers to measure the typology of the activity and detect the temporal and dynamic fluctuation of work experience. Popularity of ESM as a new form of research design increased over the recent years because it addresses the shortcomings of cross-sectional research, which once unable to. Researchers can now detect intra-individual variances across time. In ESM, participants are asked to record their experience and perceptions in a paper or electronic diary. There are three types of ESM. One is single contingent random beeping notifies participants to record data. Data advantage of this type of ESM is minimization of recall biases. Event contingent records data when certain events occur. First one is random beeping notifies participants to record data when single event will occur. The advantage of this type of ESM is minimization of recall biases. And in the event contingent records data when certain events occur. Interval contingent, that is, records data according to the passing of a certain period of time. So that type of event sampling method depending upon some events. ESM has several disadvantages. One of the disadvantages of ESM is it can sometimes be perceived as invasive and intrusive by participants. ESM also leads to possible self-selection bias. It may be that only certain types of individuals are willing to participate in this type of study, creating non-random sample. Another concern is related to participant cooperation. Participants may not be actually fill out their diaries at the specified times. Furthermore, ESM may substantively change the phenomenon being studied. reactivity or priming effects may occur, such that repeated measurements may cause changes in the participants' experience. This method of sampling data is also highly vulnerable to common method variance. So as a whole, you can understand there are various type of sampling techniques. So we can go through this type of sampling techniques while do research, to understand the data, to understand to go for more research. Then for that you need to sample the data from the population. So it is very important what type of population you are going to choose, depending upon the probability scheme, depending upon non-probability scheme. So that is why it is very essential topic to read or to study. So you try to go through this type of sampling techniques. In the book you'll find it, in the literature also you'll find many more. I have just tried to give some names and a briefing about those things with some examples. Try to go through this again. You might have doubts also. Please let me know if you have any kind of doubts. We'll try to resolve that over Google Meet. Thank you.